Hi, welcome to Tell Me Over Tea. I'm Lois.
I'm Stephanie.
I'm Sylvie.
And so, before we start, what are we drinking today?
I am just drinking water because it's a little bit late and I don't want to have any caffeine, so
Oh, come on.
that's it. boring old. I'm drinking water through a straw because I don't know.
I think that makes it better.
There you go, yes.
Well, we're in the same camp because I'm also drinking water because we are in the same
my
time
God.
zone. And I had a tea before this and I might not sleep tonight.
It's too late, I get it. For context, everyone who's listening, it is, what time is it? 10?
Almost 10, yeah.
Yeah, almost
Okay, it's
10.
almost 10 in Hong Kong. And obviously, I'm in London at the moment. And so it's 2 something, almost 3. And I'm having a tea. I'm having a chrysanthemum tea. So I bought some of the chrysanthemum flowers that are dried. And then I put a bit of honey in it. That's usually my go-to if I don't want caffeine. I love the taste of chrysanthemum because it's quite sweet and it has that. No, Sylvie says she doesn't like chrysanthemum.
Wait, chrysanthemum is gok fa, right?
Yeah.
Yes, gokfa.
Yeah, okay. You know, I feel like if it was like brewed fresh, I think it would be fine, but I just have, like that thing that looks like VLT, lemon tea, but it's like gok fa cha,
Yeah.
like
Oh no, it
chrysanthemum,
tastes
the
nothing like that.
The really sweet one, so I'm
No, no, no.
traumatized by that taste. And every time I like,
That was my childhood.
I don't
I
like
know.
those either.
it brings back childhood memories, but I'm like, I can't with the taste. I think now if it's just like fresh
It tastes
brewed
very
stuff
different.
and it's
though.
not,
Yeah.
It
not
tastes
that sweet
yeah.
in it.
different.
But actually, I feel like sometimes back in the day when we went like yamsa as a kid, I think there was always a pot of cooked fata, and I still was like,
Really? I don't think
yeah.
I've ever had
I have gokfa when I drink.
yeah, it's just like little flower buds, right?
Yeah, gokfa, and then we usually have a stronger black tea. So if you get 2 tea orders when you're
Yeah,
young time,
yeah.
then I would get maybe a oolong,
Yeah.
like an oolong or like a longjang, and then I would get like a
bole.
gokfa.
Really?
Yeah,
I
bole.
feel like literally all we ever get is bole guansai. Like, that's it. like there's
fair.
no other. Maybe like a tikunyam if like we're feeling
Tikunyam,
Tiguyam, yeah.
yeah, wild, but usually not.
Very dark, all very dark teas. But I guess it's meant to wash out the grease. So I think this doesn't do as good of a job of washing
Yeah.
out the grease. It's a much milder tea.
But it's a nice summer tea. Gokfa is really nice for summertime.
Do you know what? It's really nice cold. It's very nice cold as well. But I'm having it hot
Wash
today.
out the grease.
For like dim sum.
That's the whole point of tea, yeah.
Yeah. Like as in like when you eat food and it's like really greasy or like whole lao,
Oily,
then you
yeah.
want to balance it out with like a black tea.
Does it actually do that?
I think in your mouth maybe. like
Yeah.
like flavor wise,
Yeah.
it's good. It's a
It's
good
a palate
pairing.
cleanser.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, but also
Okay,
we wash
okay,
our
okay,
fingers
okay,
with
got
it.
you.
You know, we
that's
eat
true.
at the Zhao
That is
Lao.
very true.
When you eat with the Lazy Susan, the Chinese restaurant,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
if you're having seafood, we wash our fingers with lemon and tea, so it must be doing something.
Okay, fair enough.
But anyway, so today we're going to dive into the life of being roommates with multiple types of people at different points of our lives. I think that I'm going to have a lot of interesting things to dig into. And obviously me and Sylvie had some overlaps when we were in school together. But I guess we can start from when we were in boarding school. I mean, for
Yes,
Steph, you didn't
please
go to
tell
boarding
me.
school.
I did not go to boarding school. I went to an American public high school.
Okay, so out of my curiosity and interest, what would you imagine boarding school to be like?
Boarding school is like the wild, wild west in my brain. There's like a bunch of rules and it's like super hardcore, but also everyone is drinking and doing drugs. Everyone's hiding drugs, everyone's hiding alcohol because there are no parents and not enough caretakers or teachers or whatever. I don't have a lot of references for boarding school. I've maybe seen a few movies, but I don't know what the context is that my brain thinks that boarding school is like super wild. But because like everyone's in high school, I assume, like, or at high school age, so like teenagers or whatever, like you're all just like going crazy, like super hormonal. That's the vibe. Is it accurate? I don't know.
Sylvie, is it accurate?
I don't know. I felt like my experience was a little bit tame compared to what you saw on, I don't know, movies and films.
I don't even know any. Like, I could not name off the top of my head why I think boarding schools are so wild. Like, there's no
It's
movie.
definitely from movies.
There's
no.
TV show that I feel like I saw. I don't know.
It's just the concept of like, you know, you have this like a bunch of kids just together, locked in one place, and sure there are like curfews and blah 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 in place, but it's like, oh, okay, well my parents aren't here, I can do my own kind of thing. I can see where you get the idea from.
I think so. Sylvie and I, we went to the same dance school in the UK, but because we entered the school at different ages, I actually think that you and I have quite a different experience of boarding. As in, you came in, if I'm right, when you were already in a boarding area, with like maybe you're in a room with 2 people, 3 people maximum.
So, actually, the first term I was actually in a room with, I want to say like 6 girls.
Oh, that's quite a lot actually.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot.
I came in 6th form, but I think it was like it was either the first term or the second. I was in a bigger dorm. And the thing is it wasn't so bizarre to me, because like when I was in, I mean, it was strange, but also it was just when I was in Hong Kong and we had basically we had school trips, and in school trips you would go to like, I don't know, like a camping place, and you'd have like dorms, and you'd share dorms with like multiple different people. So it was kind of like that, but like for like a whole term. And then after that, I think once you kind of like establish your friendship groups and you kind of made some of the friends or whatever friends you were with, then I think you were able to like change dorms or like find a friend that you'd like to share a dorm with. And then I was in a 2 dorm with another friend of mine. But basically it was on campus, but I only was boarding on campus for 1 year. And then the other 2 years...
You were outside. You're in an off-campus boarding house.
Yeah, well, kind of. We basically like rented a house. It's not really like a boarding house from the school. It was just like it was like a flat, like a house that we essentially rented out. And some of us, like our friends, like whoever we were like grouped up with, we would stay in that house. But basically there's a catch to it, because we were essentially like still minors, I guess. So basically one of the girls' sisters, older sister, would act as the kind of, not guardian, but like the person that was like
On the lease?
kind of, yeah, exactly. But she was like in university somewhere nearby, but she wasn't like living at the flat like actively. She would like maybe come up every so often, so we had the luxury of that. So then we were basically like out of like the school campus, and it was quite it was like okay, I'm just gonna start like living off, like out of, it was very close to school, but it was like, oh, okay, this is new. I've got my own room, I've got my own flat, we have a shared kitchen. It was all very sort of like very, very weird for like when you were like 17, 18 kind of.
It's very young. It just came to me actually, Sylvie, when you were talking. The first time that I was ever roommates with anyone was actually with you when we were at strolling around. You remember, don't you?
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, so okay, for Steph, just to fill you in, basically when me and Sylvie met on a project doing dance, and it was an expo project, and we went to the Shanghai Expo to perform in representation of Hong Kong as like young dancers. And in that project, Sylvie and I kind of became friends and got quite close, and then we ended up being roommates when we went to Shanghai, because I think we were there for almost a week. It was a long time, and we chose our roommates, I think. So then Sylvie and I chose to be together. And I think that was actually the first time outside of like a school context where I had a roommate, and we shared a hotel room together. But yeah, that was our first stint.
Was it just me and you?
Yes, it was just me and you. It was 2-2.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
So you and I were together, and she had to endure the wrath of my snoring. I don't know if you remember that.
Now that you mention it, I remember that I think we were together, but
We're never together, yeah.
I don't remember
The snoring.
that much.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, I don't remember the snoring. No.
Good, because I think that's all people remember me by when they live with me. Like, I snore.
Well, no, because I do have another friend that snores a lot, and her snoring is unbearable. So
I think I might be there. I might be at that
she
level.
trumps you.
Yeah, I used to snore in college, and my roommate used to call me Little Bear because that's
Wait, why is it so cute though, Little Bear? That's cute.
Because I think in college I didn't snore all the time. Like I would snore when I was super tired, so it wasn't like
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's why I got the nickname. 'Cause
Consistent.
It was like, yeah.
So with my snoring, I really struggled when I was younger in boarding school because I went to boarding school at the dance school when I was 15, and that was when we had to be in a room with 7 girls. And that was a lot of people.
That is a
There was
lot
a lot of bunk bed situations, but also it was just a massive room with a lot of girls. And so it's actually ridiculous now that I think about it because my parents pay a shit ton of money. And it's not that the boarding facilities are bad, it's just that you get no privacy and you get no space to yourself. You're often sharing space. And for 7 people to be compatible to live together is wild. Like, it's not possible. And so obviously we had disagreements, differences in how we wanted to live, like how we wanted to treat the space. Like, I mean, essentially you had nothing but a desk, a wardrobe, and a bed. But your bed is less than a meter away from the girl next to you on both sides. And so that is close. That is super close. And 7 people is a lot. And, like, that was definitely the age when some of the girls started sneaking around and spending time with, maybe other boys in their dorms and then coming back super late. And then we all had to keep a secret. I mean, obviously, when you're friends, you would do it for anybody. But then, like, there was all this, like, so there was noise, people coming in and out, sometimes boys sneaking in to sleep on the beds for the night. And then we all had to be hush-hush about it. It was so scandalous. See, so part of it is true. I think part of it is true.
Okay, I had no experience with this because, like,
I just think, it's different. It depends on who you're staying with, right? And in the 7 dorm, you don't get to choose. You don't really get to pick. Like, when we were in that school, when we were in the younger years, it was more of like a rotational, maybe the person who is in charge of your dorms would be the person to choose based off of their understanding of your friendships. And so you didn't really get a say. So only when you were much older, like in the 6th form, when Sylvie joined, did I get to choose my roommate or dorm mate. And then that was when I started being in dorms with 3 people or under. So it was either 2 or 3, and it would be my close friends. And that was like a whole different ball game because then you felt like you could have more ownership over the space. You started to learn how to compromise. Like, what is it like to live with somebody? So it's kind of interesting because I think boarding school does equip you with, like, more understanding of what it's like to interact and respect other people in the same space and, like, learn how to do these things if you didn't have a sibling growing up and whatnot. Like, it is kind of there's nothing really quite like it in the adult world besides having a roommate in a flat. But then you're not sharing a room, you have your own room, right? So already you have a bit more space and a bit more privacy. But like Sylvie, I only had my own room when we moved out of the dorms and started renting a flat outside. It was a very similar situation. We got someone to be like legal representative when we were signing the lease and stuff like that. And then so we were in a room with 3 of my really good friends at dance school at that point. We had chosen to live together. We each had a room. And that was the first time I had my own room, actually, outside of home, like, ever. And so I remember decorating my room. It felt really nice. We learned how to, actually, like, have a household and take care of a household. It was pretty cool. It really was like adulting.
I'm curious, like, when because I don't really know what it was like for you, but did you have any, like, not arguments but disagreements?
I mean,
in
of course,
the house, like, regarding, like, washing up, or like who cleans the toilet, or like, were there, like, people pointing fingers at certain people? Like, did it get messy? Did it get, like, or was it generally okay?
Okay, so the house was really small. So I do think the smaller the house, the less you would have to do as a household to upkeep it. I was lucky because both of my friends were, like, notoriously tidy, and so was I. So I think we were on the same page about keeping things clean. And I think that's half the battle. And I'm sure most people who live together, couples, friends, whatever now, will say that cleanliness is like a big, big thing. Like sanitation is the number one thing that most people would have a disagreement about. And so I think we're on the same cleanliness level, and that helped. So we respected each other's space. I guess the disputes still come because you're essentially living with two other people that you are friends with but have never lived together with. So there are bits of each other that you never really know until you start living together, right? And it has nothing, maybe sometimes it has nothing to do with the house. It could just be that someone is not a morning person, or someone tends to bicker, or someone like needs to confront them something when you're in a disagreement. Or so it's more like the relationship or the friendship that gets tested, not in the context of the house sometimes. But I remember specifically, I think the only thing that sometimes felt difficult was that we were at dance school, and so inadvertently all of us we were all after the same goal, which was to do well in the dance school so that you could get more recognition and potentially get more exposure opportunities to perform and showcase yourself, right, in that aspect. And so there's always going to be a bit of tension, and how you deal with that tension is very different. And I think some people tend to bring it into the house after a day of training and after a day of school, and some people try not to. And I'm definitely the latter, just because, not because I am more mature necessarily, it's just more that I'm so tired. I like to keep these things separate when I can. But, sometimes the tension or the level of competition bleeds into like life after training. And I guess that can create a bit of friction. What was it like for you? Because I remember going to your house, Sylvie, and you had a nice home.
The thing is, I think the one that you visited, well, I stayed at 2 different places.
Oh, okay. I think I went to the latter one.
Yeah, I think you did
That was a really nice flat.
Yeah, it was all right, but also we did something cheeky where, like, we made the living room into, like, a bedroom when we really weren't supposed to.
Oh, been there.
You have
Done
that. For the most part, I think it was all fine, I think. There was some bickering, like, we had, like, a rota of, like, who's supposed to do, like, what chores and, like, who's supposed to... I think
we did too.
Cleaning the toilet was, like, the least favorite of everybody, and, like, I think there was some sort of, like, arguments and shit about that. But actually the thing I remember most about the first place that I was in was I was staying with 2 other girls. Was it 2? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we basically hosted a house party.
Ooh, you were that kind of house.
But we weren't even that, it wasn't that crazy. And then we invited a lot of one of my friends' home friends. Mm-hmm. So like from her hometown, they all just like came over to our house, and like we just had a house party, and like they all slept over. And I remember it was quite bad because obviously like there was drinks and stuff. I don't know who was there, but it wasn't super rowdy. I don't know if it was Halloween, I forgot what it was. But basically somehow, I can't remember if one of the other friend's sister, who is like the representative for us, if she wasn't there, I should say. But I think her room was locked because she didn't want anybody going into the room when we had a house party. And obviously there were boys there who were like, why the fuck is this, like, door locked or whatever? And we had a couple of drinks, and I kid you not, like, they smashed the door open. They like broke the lock. And I remember her like coming back, I don't know, like the next few days, and she was freaking livid. She was like, what, you've like completely destroyed it. Like and then we had like a proper like sit down and like a lecture, and like we got like, yeah, it was like,
oh my word, what?
It was a lot. And then I mean, it was fine, but there was tension in that sense, not like between us necessarily, but like from the more mature older sister that was like kind of like, you guys can't do this. And
fair enough.
and you guys are like causing a havoc, and it's just, you just can't live like this or whatever. And then I think there was some tension because of that with the respected like sister who was our friend. And then like I think when we moved out to the second house, like she wasn't one of our flatmates. Anyway,
I mean,
fun times. I also remember like I was kind of open to the kind of world of, oh my god, I can host a house party with like no adults, and everybody's just sort of like, yeah, this is fun. And like, you know, I was making like Tesco pizzas, shoving in the oven.
Yeah,
and like, I was too tipsy.
Obviously, you have chips as well.
And then, of course, I burned my freaking forearm on the bloody grill because I was like wavy as shit, you know. Fun times. It was quite hilarious, I think. Yeah.
Oh my god, why does it seem like a lifetime away? As in, I hear you talk
it does.
about it, like,
you know,
wow.
it does feel really, really like far away from my memory. I'm really trying to like pick little bits, and I feel like there's definitely things that happen, but I feel like my brain just doesn't have the capacity to hold on to all of this stuff, only certain things.
Yeah. I mean, okay,
yeah,
on the flip side of this, I definitely went to your house and had very wholesome meals. You used to cook really nice meals for me. Like you would make pasta.
The second place. That was the second place. The drama was in like the first place.
Yeah, it was.
But actually,
introduced me to wholesome life for sure.
But actually, the second place, like I always had to. I was staying in the living room. Oh no, was I staying in the living room or was there another? Anyway, we had to keep the curtains closed all the time.
Room. Yes, you were.
We had to keep the curtains closed every time because like the landlord like lives somewhere nearby and he would just come randomly to check on you. So we always had to just like kind of hide, and like he would come and randomly check. So then you basically had to turn your bedroom back into the living room.
Oh my goodness, I remember the struggles of that.
Yeah. So yeah, that was you had to deal with that. Yeah, it was just basically growing up really fast, you know. I don't think
insanely fast. Yeah.
It was. Yeah, I mean, it did something. I mean, yeah, you kind of became a little bit more independent, like, But I think it was. I don't know if it was like the right approach, if you know what I mean. We didn't go crazy, but
yeah. I do think it's very easy to swing like. You could have very easily gone down a very different path or like picked up some very different like habits, you know?
Yeah, but I think I was like in a friendship circle in a group where we were all kind of pretty clued in and sensible. Like I remember the first year when I was on campus, and then there was like, you weren't specifically just, it was mixed with everybody in the sense that you had the dance stream, the drama stream, the musical theatre stream, that the whole floor is like everybody, whereas when we moved out, I was like with just like my dance friends and like people who were doing the dance course.
Same courses.
But I remember there were like few personalities, and you would hear things like you would hear a few people like from the other kind of courses, like you know, oh, they did this, they snuck out, they had sex behind the bush or whatever, like that kind of stuff. You know, and then, but to be fair, I didn't actively kind of witness these things happen. Like, you just hear it on the grapevine and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm aware of it, but I've also, like, I'm in my own little circle as well, so I'm kind of...
It's just so much to navigate, right, at that age.
You know what? Yeah, no, but you know what? When we had, what was those things? Did we have like dances? I just remember like, I just have this picture of us in like the ballroom where it was maybe the end of the year. And then we have basically like, we have an end of the year, and then we have like Christmas dinner, and then you basically kind of have like a little dance thing. And that's when people like, that's when like some of the kids go crazy and they're just like, yeah, let's just go out to like whatever, out like literally on like the pitch of grass where they're just like, you know, having sex or whatever.
Everyone was like in the lawn.
And then everybody was hooking up with everyone. Yeah, it was. Yeah,
it was a very small school with very few boys and a lot of girls.
Yes, and like some of the boys are also like, are they fully straight? You don't actually know, you know, but they're just like exploring, and it's just, I found it like, yeah, not for me.
It was kind of weird, and I feel like probably Steph,
weird,
you having boarding, like as in having roommates in college was similar, because I definitely was in an environment where everyone was exploring their sexuality, and they're like, everyone was having like their sexual awakening, and I was just there like, I want to dance. Like I was so not in that frame of mind, and I don't know, like because now I'm going to give you my imagination of college, because I didn't go to college, did I? So then like I think that college based off of films, Sylvie, I don't know how you feel about this, because we both didn't really go to uni, but I see it as like everyone is either having a house party, joining a sorority, or you're meeting people through clubs, like as in actual clubs, like interest clubs within uni. And then also going to the clubs, everyone's just driving each other around, drinking out of red Solo cups. Like, I imagine that, and like destroying school property, destroying home property. Just like, that's my impression of college.
I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of accurate. At least the college that I went to, it's pretty accurate. Like, except for maybe destroying school property, I think people did less of that, but a lot of the other stuff.
Was there a lot of sex?
Yeah, not for me, but for other people, yeah, there was.
Fair enough.
Yeah, people were definitely exploring their sexualities. I was also trying to be academic, but I did go to a lot of parties. And I did go to a lot of frat parties, actually. Because
Can you tell us what that's like?
Yeah, I want to know.
Frat parties are essentially house parties, but in a frat house. And frat houses...
But are they like what they look like in the film?
No. Well, I think yes and no. So the college that I went to, their frat houses were just regular houses. Or maybe just the frats that I went to had houses that were more like regular houses and less like...
Okay.
So there's this thing called Greek Row, which exists in some universities where there's like an entire block of frat and sorority houses. We did not have that, but they do exist in colleges. Yeah, so they do exist. I've just never had that experience, because fraternity life and sorority life was not so big. Actually, I can't say that. I don't know. But to be honest, I really don't know that much about fraternity and sorority life. Like, I really only went to maybe like one fraternity and one sorority, and I only went during freshman year, and it was only because they were trying to recruit us or whatever, and
Got you.
I didn't get recruited, so then it was kind of whatever, and then I stopped going to them and then just went to like regular house parties and stuff. So yeah. When I got to college, I had 2 roommates, and it was like sleeping in bunk beds basically, and that's where I met the one friend that I kept from college, Sarita, shout out, she's great. I lived with her all 4 years of college, and yeah, it was really nice actually to like live with someone for that long and then also vibe with them, even though they were like randomly assigned in the beginning. I remember before getting into university, or like I got into university and I got assigned this roommate, and I was looking her up on Facebook, and I was just like, what kind of person is this? Like, what kind of person am I going to live with for the next year? Like, how is this going to go? Because in high school, you hear a lot of horror stories of like, oh, if you choose to live with your friend, sometimes you don't vibe very well as roommates, and then you're not friends by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know anybody who was going to the same university that I was out of high school, and so I was like, okay, whatever, like I'm not gonna, you know, choose a friend. But if I had known somebody, there's a chance that like, I don't know, maybe we wouldn't be friends now. No idea. But yeah, just lucked out, had really nice roommates the first year, but because Sarita's friends at the time like were trying to pledge into a fraternity, like they were trying to get into a fraternity, that's why I sort of got dragged into fraternity life. Like, I think if that hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't be so into like that community, or like, you know, I probably wouldn't have been invited in that space, or like had wanted to go into that space so much. So yeah, and frat parties are basically drinking out of red Solo cups and like
and the keg, the beer keg. And like,
I don't
that's
know
what I've
that we
seen
ever had a
before.
keg. There were a lot of handles of alcohol, of like the cheapest alcohol, like the shit, like Captain Morgan. I don't know if you guys know what that is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the rum.
I cannot drink Captain Morgan because it is so like it immediately takes me back, and I like it's that flavor like it just the hangovers that I would get, like bad, all bad, like just the absolute worst. But yeah, and then we played a lot of beer pong. Like there was, you know, like iconic red solo
okay.
cup, like sort of beer pong-esque sort of
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, did a lot of that. I don't know how to. How else to
Were there
explain it.
were there like those obnoxious like frat boys that like do stupid shit to each other and
For
like
sure, yeah.
that you see
Oh my
that you
God.
see in the films, like really outrageous
Yes,
stuff.
like ram
Okay.
each other into trees with their legs open.
Okay.
Or
I
like-
don't know about that, but
That type of
I
stuff.
didn't learn about the hazing process because basically what happens is
Oh,
if
yes.
you want to
That's
get
not
into
funny,
a
yeah.
fraternity, you have to go
Yeah.
through this process where they basically like do a bunch of really fucked up
Like
stuff. to you
initiation,
in-
right?
Yeah, in order to like build a brotherhood bond or whatever. I say in air quotes because it's basically like you get to torture people and they pay for it. It's
Yeah.
really fucking weird. And they did a lot of different things. A lot of things that I'm just like, what the hell is happening right now? And why are you so adamant on getting into this fraternity that makes you do these things? And some of the less egregious stuff is like memorizing the Greek alphabet, or like when you see somebody, you have to greet them, because fraternities are structured in a way where you have a family where like you get adopted essentially into a family, and so somebody is under you and you call them your little or whatever. And I don't know, it's like all of this semi-hierarchical stuff that is in family, and you have to be able to like know all of the relations to everyone, and so you have to memorize that. And that's like on the lower tier of stuff that you have to do. And then on the higher end, it was like they would quote unquote kidnap you, which is like they wake you up in the middle of the night, and then they like drive you out to the beach, and you have to hold an ice block until it melts. And these ice blocks are huge.
Oh my goodness.
Or they would beat you with a paddle. That's one of the things that they did. They have these things called paddles where they put your quote unquote family lineage in it or whatever, and then they hit you with it. Like that's insane.
What the hell?
Yeah,
That's
it's
how
like-
hazing came around, right? Like that term
That's
of
what
realizing that
hazing
was
is.
hazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Wait,
it's
but what is the benefit of being in a fraternity? What are
connections.
the
So in the future, you get connections to other people, or you're like interviewing for a job somewhere, and you're like, hey, by the way, I was part of this fraternity. Then you have a connection with this person. You know, it's essentially building connections with people. And I just
Wow.
want to say, not all fraternities or sororities are like this. There are fraternities that are strictly for business, or there were maybe medical fraternities where if you were getting your doctorate or something, like you can join this fraternity, and it's potentially less wild than these social fraternities, which I think was the ones that I got exposed to. But either way, I don't know, it was kind of wild. I hope that there isn't hazing in business fraternities, but I really don't know, because I never really looked into it or like experienced any of that. So yeah.
But there was like a real social awakening of hazing like a few years back, right? So I would like to hope that that culture has changed, because it became like it came into everyone's attention that hazing was happening in uni, and people were doing lots of things to try and bring more attention to that.
Did it? Oh,
Like,
I didn't know
within-
that.
Yeah, there was like a huge movement around hazing, because I think there was probably an incident where someone got extremely hurt or probably even died from it.
how is this still like nobody regulates these sort of things?
It's like a open secret.
Yeah, but-
you know, I don't know. Universities maybe like just turn a blind eye to it because it's so ingrained in university culture that. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. It's kind of wild. They throw parties basically as a way to recruit people. They're like, oh, look at all the fun parties that you're going to have if you join this fraternity. Like, you should do it.
It's like a social thing, right?
Yeah. It definitely was a social thing. When you're a freshman, you like kind of don't know what's going on. That's your introduction into fraternities. So if you're a party person and you're like down to party all the time, it's a good way to get people into your fraternity. And then also you do make friends, you know, you do find people who are in the parties who
I guess this is one aspect of fraternity and sorority life that we are discussing right now. There's many different facets of it, right?
Yeah, because also I never joined, so I don't actually know what they do inside of them. Like, after you get inside, I really don't know what that was like. I only know secondhand, like, a bit of the process that happened through stories of guys telling me what was happening while they were taking a break in our room, smelling like crap because they couldn't shower for a week, because that was one of the hazy things. Yeah. It was
my goodness.
It was kind of wild. Like, I still don't really understand how they did it, but also I got to go to the party, so, like, I guess that's okay. I don't know.
True.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that was freshman year. And then sophomore year, I also lived on campus, but I lived with 5 other girls in an on-campus dorm. So that was kind of wild, because it was like 3 people in one room, 3 people in another room, and then we shared a living space, a bathroom, and a kitchen. So
what, 1 bathroom to 5 girls?
Yeah, it was, oh my god.
Wow.
That year was one of the worst living situations.
What?
I mean, granted, it was a nice apartment, it was great, it was just that there were so many people sharing a single bathroom.
That's way too many.
Yeah, it was a lot, and it was messy, which, I mean, is fine. I think, like, when you're first moving out, like, it's bound to be a little bit messy. It was tough, and there was a lot of, like, fighting, especially towards the end, because I think there was misunderstanding, and, like, we weren't really trying to figure out each other. I think it was just a lot of bickering, and there was, like, a situation that I don't really remember now, to be honest. I just remember that we were taking sides, and it wasn't great. And, like, the girls were really nice to begin with, and then it just kind of, like, fell apart.
Were you, like, bickering about small things? Because, like, actually I want to ask Lois's opinion on, like, the people that she shared, like, flats with, if she's still friends with them. Because I also don't really speak to any of the girls that I was roommates with. Not, like, actively, but just maybe because we just, like, fell out of touch. But there were some sort of kind of tension between us, but were the discrepancies or, like, the arguments on, like, petty things, or were they, like, actually, like...
For me, it was a little bit of both. I think in the beginning it was a little bit petty. There was one person who just kept taking, like, somebody else's food. They just kept taking it. I just think it's annoying, you know, because it's like, hey, I paid for the food. Like, you're eating my food, basically, that I paid for, which is not great.
No, that's the worst.
But then I do think that one of the reasons why we fell out with the other girls was because it was, like, a big thing. But I don't think it had to do with the living situation. Like, I think maybe somebody cheated on somebody or something. I don't know.
Ooh, okay.
I don't remember. I really like, cannot tell you what it was. But it definitely, I don't think had anything to do with us living together. But then it definitely made living together a lot worse. What about you, Lois?
I mean, for me, like, the 3, okay, like, I guess I'm speaking specifically now towards the time when I was still in school, when I had roommates, because I've also had roommates, as in, like, flatmates outside of school when I became an adult, and I think that's a very different dynamic. But then when I was in school, with the other 2 friends that I had shared a flat with, shout out to Nicole and Becca. Nicole is someone that I was definitely closer to because we spent more time together in school. We were in the same class when we were training for dance and stuff. And so I definitely spent more time in the day with her. But then I actually quite like the idea of 3 people in a flat. Like, I think it's nice to have a mixture of dynamics, and I'm quite comfortable with having, you know, a few people that are closer to others and then vice versa. I think it's better than 2 people sometimes, because I think 2 can allow tension to arise a lot easier, and then you don't have, like, a third person to maybe mediate and provide, like, an objective opinion when something happens. But the 3 of us, like I said, we had the same level of cleanliness, and we also kind of shared, we had a pot of money where we all put £10 in, and we would buy all the house stuff with that money. And so, like, we actually shared the bare basics within the kitchen together, like eggs, milk, like stuff that we all would use, we had just bought out of the pot. And then other things that we would eat, for example, because you talked about food, Steph, and how if someone stole my food, I would be pissed off. Like, I think there's so many things that I could just turn a blind eye to, but the food thing, if I open my fridge and I don't see my salami that I wanted to eat this morning, I would be furious.
For sure.
Like, I do not want anyone taking my food, because I think that really messes up with my planning of, like, a day or whatnot. And also just get your own food. Like, I think some of it is done out of laziness, right? Like, I'm not sure it's always, right? It's not always about, like, the fact that you don't have money for the food. Like, that can be the case, don't get me wrong. But, like, usually it's just, like, I can't be asked to go to the shop. So, like, just go to the damn shop. Like, so, yeah, we shared a lot of that. I guess we were mature enough or close enough to be open to talk about these things that we needed to be in consensus with. I still speak to, there's one friend for sure, that I still speak to more than the other today, and it had nothing to do with poor interaction when we shared a flat. It's just more, we drifted apart because they now live in a different country. But I would say I have a very close relationship with everyone that I had as housemates as an adult. Like, everyone I've lived with as an adult are close friends, and we still speak to each other, and but it's a very different situation, right? Because you're making money, you're you're approaching life differently in your 20s versus as a teenager. But living with family, so none of you live with family now besides me. And I think very often I compare the living with family with living with friends, because for me, I jumped from living with in London with my sister and a flatmate to living back at home with my parents. And so that was a huge shift. And wait, Steph, when is the last time you lived with your parents?
I mean, just like on vacation, like.
But like, no, like actually living before college.
With them? High school.
High school. That's a long time. What about you, Sylvie? Not too long ago for you, right?
So after my stint in the UK, where I didn't really talk about it, but like when I was in London for a bit, and I was actually renting a place with this other girl who I met through a mutual friend. Her name's Lulu. But anyway, it was like a council flat area, and it was just, I needed like a bed to stay in and go and do about my auditions and things. It was very basic. But after that, I obviously came back to Hong Kong, and that's when I lived at home with my parents, and it was I think it wasn't that bad, but there's definitely things where your parents would say comments and things like that would just bug you, like, when are you coming home? What are you doing? Blah, blah. And just like, it definitely clashed. That sense of freedom was a little bit like, okay, well, I mean, I don't have to let them know exactly where I am all the time, but I'm just saying it was an adjustment again, coming back.
I know. I think you're being kind, as in like, it's a huge adjustment.
I think.
As in you're being, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think if I go and see my parents like once a week, and just having dinner with them already, I'm like, you're getting on my tits. Like.
Wait, for listeners' context, you now live with your partner, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so now you've made the adjustment back. Because for me, I technically now still live at home in Hong Kong. And so the jump from doing boarding and then roommates and then having flatmates in London, living like a working young adult life with my sister, who is my family, but I would consider her part family and part friend. She is a wonderful combination of what I would want as someone to live within a flat, but like not everyone gets that opportunity to do that. But then to moving back to Hong Kong and living with my parents, I don't know about you, Sylvie, but like, did you not find like your parents just forgot that you were an adult and just really wanted to still treat you as their child?
Yes.
And they can't grapple with this new dynamic.
They still do.
Yeah, like it's. And I was like, oh crap, like I am, to them, they don't know how to treat me like an adult. And I had grown so much and so much more independent than they had remembered. And so it was a huge adjustment period. And I think even after 4 years, it's still an adjustment occasionally. Like things would pop up and it would still feel like, I'm like, oh crap, like I'm so not used to this. Because when you live outside, you have a way you want to live. You kind of spent a lot of time finding out how you want to have a home life, like what you want to do when you get home. You have routines. I'm also sometimes a creature of habit, and so there's certain things that would irk me. For example, and I say all this with love because I know my parents listen to this podcast.
Oh, cute! Shout out to
Hi,
Lois's
Margaret.
parents.
Hi, Gary.
Hi.
Yes, Margaret and Gary. They're cool. They know Spotify. They are our avid followers. I think they've like given us 5 stars. So thank you, mom and dad.
Yay.
But basically, they love, and I can speak about this now because we had a conversation between us before this is now happening. But I told them that I do not like the sound of the television in the morning. Like, they love putting the TV on. Like, the first thing they do is get up, put the TV on. They love background noise. And when I wake up, I do not want any noise. I just want to have my coffee in peace, eat my breakfast in peace. And so there was just one time I just couldn't help it. I was like, do we really have to have it on? Because they don't watch it. So they don't sit in front of it. They just like to have noise. And it's just something they had like grown accustomed to and is part of their habits. And I was just like, is there any way we could like, but obviously I am essentially going back into their space, and I now understand that I can't just ask for all these adjustments. It's not fair. So I tend to wake up a little bit earlier or a little bit later now so that we stagger our breakfast a little bit. Sometimes there are some overlapping moments, but so that I can have my mornings the way I want to have my mornings, you know? But I mean, living with family, like Steph, when you were younger, going back to high school, obviously you hadn't known anything otherwise, but like now, you know, when your parents come to visit, for example, and they share space with you, what does that feel like these days?
It's I do really like my space, and I've lived alone for so long that like I am really, I wouldn't say rigid, but I definitely do have habits, and I definitely enjoy my space. And so when they come over, it's like pros and cons. There are things that they do that I like, and then things that they do that I'm like, ugh, please don't do that. Or they're usually only here for like a month max. So anything that bugs me, I usually just deal with, because it's not that big of a deal. And also the things that they do are usually just helpful, or I would do it a different way, but it's getting done, so I just need to let it go. It's never anything big. It's always just small stuff where I'm like, can you not? I don't even know. It's so small that even now I'm like, actually it's totally fine. But I think mostly it's just like sometimes people are just in your space in a way that you don't always want. I'm alone so much of the time that it's like jarring sometimes when somebody else is there. And like, even though they are my parents, there are certain things that I would be doing or like wouldn't be doing, you know, just because they are there. Like playing music. Like I play music all the time. So when they're there, I can't really do that. Or my dad really likes to listen to videos on his iPad, like full volume. And that's just, and like he in America can totally do that because there's the outside, you know, he can like go on the deck, he can go outside, he can go into another room. And here in my place in Hong Kong, it's stacked because it's like a village house. So instead of being able to go outside, he can't really do that. So then I'm just like constantly listening to whatever he's listening to. And then I also don't want to play music while he's also listening to stuff, even though I think he doesn't care. I think if I were to blast music, he'd be like, yeah, whatever. And then he'd just turn his iPad
or
up
just
louder.
have like overlapping sounds.
Yeah, and
no,
I don't, it's just something that I'm like, whatever. Like I'll deal with it while he's here, and then it's fine because he also fixes everything. Anytime something needs to get done, he fixes it. So I'm like, okay, give and take. It's okay, whatever. Yeah.
Does it feel very different from when you used to live at home?
Yeah, because I think actually my parents are a little bit of the opposite. Like I think my parents have fully come into the fact that I'm an adult, and so they don't really care if I'm out until, you know, the break of dawn or whatever, which I never am. But they don't really mind. Sometimes they'll text me, you know, if they're cooking, to be like, hey, you know, like, are you coming home for dinner? But other than that, they really give me full freedom to like
the number one Asian family household. Tell me where you are. I want to know what you're doing.
Do you want food?
Are you coming back for dinner?
Yeah, but I don't see it as they're trying to suss out where I am. Usually I'm working, and they're like, hey, you know, are you gonna be at rehearsal, or are you gonna you know, come home? So yeah, and I love coming home to my mom's cooking. She's great at it. So
that's one thing I just miss.
I know, right?
I miss, yeah. My brother still lives at home, so he has the luxury of, you know, getting cooked meals every night. That's why I go over every week, just be like, I don't want to cook, Mom. Can you cook? Just Just, I don't want to do nothing right now. Can I just be fed, please? Thank you.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that.
It is such a place of
but I think-
comfort, right? Or like a feeling of comfort.
Yeah, exactly. Living with roommates really makes you appreciate all of the things that your parents do for you. I was really ungrateful in high school.
Oh, hell yes.
Now that I know all the things that my mom did, and also my dad, like fixing stuff, or like not knowing what to do when something goes wrong in the house, but like my dad knows, he can figure it out. Or just simple things like, oh, I'm busy this week, I don't have time to do laundry. My mom did that, or she washed the dishes, or like whatever. It's just really, really nice. And I think when you're younger, you don't realize these acts are what also count as your parents showing love. And it's only when you're older and you realize how long all of these things take and how annoying it is sometimes to think about, like, oh, what am I gonna cook?
Yeah.
It's just so nice to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're also lucky in the sense that we had the opportunity to like have these really positive feelings towards living at home, because for me now, I'm like, shit, I really love going home to people. As in, I think I just love going home to someone. And at the moment, this is my parents when I live in Hong Kong. And like now when I'm in London, it's my sister. And there is nothing better than going home to someone and being able to talk about your day or just to forget about your day. I think it can be either or. And you're right, Steph, like the amount of time and effort it takes to run a household isn't something I never understood until I began running my own. And I don't even have, children. Like that's a whole different ball game. And yet I'm like, crap, like, but then obviously our understanding of the type of household we now want is a combination of our upbringing and then maybe like our experiences living with other people and what we've probably learned about what we like and don't like. And so now the type of, you living alone, Steph, you're living a household life that you want to, because there's more freedom for you to kind of make your own choices and like kind of air quote curate the type of space that you want, that you like.
Yeah, I mean, I fail at it sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. The house gets dirty. But I try.
Or you like invite friends. Does it? Because I've never lived alone before. Have you lived alone before, Sylvie?
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
Does it get lonely, Steph?
Yes, it does. I think, especially in the beginning, when I first moved to Hong Kong, it was really, really lonely because I went from living with roommates to living by myself. And actually, in the last 2 years of college, I lived with a bunch of people. It was me, Sarita, and an insane amount of boys. And so going from that, yeah, it was like maybe 6 boys or something like that.
What sort of house were you in? Like, was
just
it
in a house? So it was like the 2 of us in one room. Maybe it was 5 boys. I don't know. It was like 3 guys in one room, 1 guy in the living room.
What was that like?
Oh my god, the state of the toilet. I do not want to imagine the state of the toilet.
Yeah, it was messy, but there was no drama.
Okay. Unlike when you stayed or when you had the female roommates, right?
Yeah. It was a lot of like, dude, wash your dishes. And he'd be like, okay.
Put the sink down.
It's a lot of that stuff. It's stupid, but they'd ask before taking your stuff. It's super chill, And yeah, it was just so messy, but fine, whatever. It's like really rowdy too. And then going from that to going to living in like solitude was hard. It was a big adjustment, and even as somebody who likes to be alone a lot of the time, it got really lonely really fast. But now it's okay. I think now I know my limit of when I need to go out and be a human being and when I can be a hermit. And I mean, it varies, but I don't necessarily agree that like it's really nice to go home to somebody. Like it is nice sometimes, but I also really like being by myself, like coming home to just my space and decompressing and being like, okay, I don't have to perform for anybody. I don't have to like talk to anybody. I can just exist as I would like to without being perceived. And that's really important. But I don't know if I ever like have a partner and live with that person, what kind of adjustment that's going to be like. I don't know. I always wonder. But I don't know. What about you, Sylvie? I feel like you're living with your partner.
Yeah, what kind of adjustment is that like? Exactly. We want to know because I've not lived with my partner before.
Oh, you've never lived with your partner before? Oh. Actually, to be honest, it wasn't really a huge adjustment because I guess like I was staying over and going over to his place, you know, a few times a week, and then eventually it was just like, okay, I think, I don't know, it was very organic. It wasn't a huge adjustment because we were spending more time with each other, and then we were like obviously getting familiar with each other's sort of habits and sort of just what you do, like like tendencies and things you do around the house and things like this. But I think it was there was not really like, it wasn't a huge shock to me, or like you know, I felt like it was pretty smooth. I mean, yeah, there's certain things that I might be a little bit more like OCD about, or like if I have certain things like in certain places, I'd like them to be in certain places. But for the most part, it's like, it's very, I don't know, it was just very natural, I feel. Like sometimes I get, you know, annoyed with like boxes hanging around on the floor or whatever. Like, not annoyed, but it's like, yo, just put it in the laundry basket or whatever. But we have like, yeah, like I cook, he cleans. It's pretty simple. Yeah.
So you have a good system. Like you've built a good system in the years that you've been living together.
I never really didn't really overthink about like how is this going to work, or like, oh, you know, are you like intruding on my space? Am I intruding on your space? Because I feel like, yeah, because like, you know, what his work and my work are very different. Like he's at work all day, and I like, you know, I freelance. I also spend quite a lot of time by myself, which I also enjoy, and I treasure the time by myself because I also like being alone. So then like when he comes back, it's also it's nice to then catch up on his day, on my day, and then we can like interact and things. But it wasn't, yeah, I felt like it wasn't like a huge jump, you know. It wasn't, I think we coexist perfectly, lovely. We didn't, yeah.
That sounds quite beautiful. And sometimes hard to come by, because I think the real test in a relationship, like a romantic relationship or a partnership, is usually the living together bit, right?
Yeah.
I feel like we're both pretty like laid back in a sense, you know. I'm not really super like particular about loads of things. Like, okay, yeah, maybe if he's like playing his music too loud, I'll be like, can you turn it down? Or like things like this. But it's very small things that, you know, if we just confronted each other and said like, oh, this is blah blah, he will do it, or I will do it. You know, because like, oh, I need a minute because I need to do this or whatever. Like, sure, yeah, sometimes you get into like some disagreements and things like this, but mostly it's quite petty and like small things that gets resolved, like if you just talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Like, now that I am spending time living with my sister again in London, I have had to readjust, because I think we've both changed in the 4 years we've spent apart, not living together, because we previously lived together, but also there was another person in the flat. And very often the interesting dynamic is that when we have another person in the flat, we both start to see eye to eye about everything, because there's another person who has a very different opinion of something compared to us. So it's like almost relative. But then when it's the two of us, often it can feel like it's just there's two sides to a situation and we're just always kind of on opposing ends. But like you said, Sylvie, it is just about being comfortable enough to confront something the minute it comes up. Which I guess is a lot of the times how, because it's just the only difference is that you're living in a space, so then you kind of can't run away from the confrontation. At some point it has to come around. Either you bite the bullet and you never bring it up and you decide it doesn't affect you, or you're gonna have to talk about it because there's like nowhere to hide, right?
Yeah, and I guess for them,
so I mean, I'm interested, as in it'd be very nice to live with, like, I think I fantasize living with a partner at some point. I mean, having a partner is part of the fantasy at the moment, but then living with a partner comes as a secondary portion of the fantasy. Because yeah, I'm toying with the idea of living by myself right now, as in like moving out in Hong Kong to live alone, because I think this could open up a lot of possibilities in my life. I do think I am spending quite a bit of time with family right now, and maybe that is, it's not limitations, but it comes with a certain structure within my week that could be nice if I broke out of it a little bit. And I'm inspired by Steph living on her own and like seeming to have like a really good time doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, in my previous relationship, we did talk about living in separate places.
Yeah?
Yeah, like long term. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't exist anymore, so there's that. But the idea was that because he probably wouldn't be able to find work in Hong Kong, that he would live in a different city, and then we would just see each other when we saw each other. I don't know. I think about that a lot. I think about non-traditional living or like couples who are like less traditional, and not to say that like I want to live alone, but it's an option, you know, if you find somebody who like vibes with you in that way. But like the compromise is that you guys don't live together. Like I think that's something to think about. I mean, like I know that like you're open to probably want to live with a partner, but like I'm just saying. Like,
yeah, it depends.
That's true though, as in like that's not a prerequisite for a relationship, right? To live together.
Yeah.
Okay, hot take. I mean, not hot take. What do I call this? What is the number one pet peeve for you in terms of someone that you have to live with? Like just one thing you absolutely cannot stand, and you would have to like address it straight away.
Oh, I don't know on the top of my head.
Mine is overnight dishes in the sink.
Oh, we can't live together because I don't wash my dishes.
I really do not. Overnight dishes in the sink used to be like a absolute no-no.
It's a deal breaker.
Obviously, I lived with my sister. Yeah, I lived with my sister. I had to learn that not everyone was like this. And so now for me, if it's in the sink, but you've like rinsed it or it's soaking in water, so it's not got all the food grime in it, I can live with it. If it's a cup, like fine, I actually won't even think about it.
But why? I'm just curious as to like why does that grind your bones?
I think because when I wake up, if I see that, I would be distraught. I don't want to wake up to that. I don't want to wake up to having to do dishes. So I just like to wake up to a clean kitchen, so that I know I go in there to make my breakfast, that I'm not having to clean up after myself, even before I begin making a mess, you know? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very particular. I agree that but I've learned. So I can do overnight dishes now, just within reason.
Within reason.
Yeah. I've actually gotten better at doing dishes on time because there are cockroaches in Hong Kong where they weren't in America.
True.
And well, also because I live, you know, in the wilderness. So if I don't do my dishes, if I leave them overnight, I have to wash them in the morning, because otherwise there's a chance that there will be cockroaches. And like
Yeah, fair.
The cockroaches in Hong Kong, they fly.
Yeah,
which
they're grim. They are ferocious.
Yeah, oh my god, absolutely gross. So I try not to leave dishes in the sink, but it does happen from time to time because I don't mind waking up and doing the dishes. I actually prefer to do them in the morning because I feel like I'm more productive in the morning. At night, I just want to go to bed. But I don't know, to each their own.
So that's not your pet peeve?
No, I don't really mind mess so much as long as it doesn't overtake communal spaces. Yeah, unless but actually, I don't know, because I think I just haven't lived with somebody for so long that, like, if it's my mess, I don't care. But if it's somebody else's mess, I'm a little
That's a good point. That's a good point. Because sometimes I get called out for double standards.
Yeah, I'm a fairly messy person. So, like, I don't really mind it if other people are messy, usually. But you have to be clean. I have piles of stuff all the time, everywhere. And that's just how I organize stuff. But it can't
organized
be dirty.
Mess.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't know. I mean, I'll clean when people come over, but like otherwise, I like piles. I like my piles.
Fair.
Yeah. In terms of pet peeves of people, I think one of them was probably stealing food.
Yeah.
Just ask.
Yeah.
If you ask, I'll say yes.
Mm-hmm.
So why take it and then pretend that you didn't? Because that's just so annoying. Usually 99% of the time I will let you have it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I don't really know. I mean, there are things that are like annoying sometimes, but most of the time it's like, you know, it's not intentional that they, you know, left certain things wherever they are. Also, I am organized mess. Like, I like to be tidy in like the communal areas as well, and like, you know, as long as I can find things that I need, then that's fine. So the dishes thing, I do the dishes, but like, because I cook, normally I like make the mess, and then I'm like, right, I need a hot minute. Like, I just need to like lie down on the sofa. Like, I don't want to do it. Like, Nico does the dishes, and he hates dishes, like overnight dishes, kind of like what Lois, like, let's say same thing as Lois.
See, but you love it when you have someone like that who hates it for you.
But then like when I'm cooking for myself, I will do the dishes like afterwards, because I don't know, it's just also like a thing that sometimes I would leave it, but I won't leave it overnight. I would leave it just because if I have some other things I have to get done, I would do them, and then I'll come back to the dishes later, or like if I'm doing the washing or whatever. I don't really have really like bad pet peeves. I guess maybe it's probably just Nico's like gaming stuff everywhere, or like wires, like fucking wires, and then like just wires everywhere, you know, and then I'm like, why are there wires everywhere? And sometimes
Nico,
sometimes
you heard it here
sometimes
first.
his shoes, he likes to just leave his shoes like right where the door is, and then you like open it and you like literally walk into a pile of shoes, and I'm like, can you please put your shoes away? He's like, yeah, and then he'll have like 3 other pairs more like accumulated, and then he will then put it away. I'm like, fine. It's just they're little things, you know. I'm like 1 or 2 fine, but when it gets a little bit like too much, then I'm like, or his golf clubs, you know, if his golf clubs are just, oh no, actually, the one pet peeve is if his whole golf thing, the golf bag, is in the middle of the room, like in the middle of the bedroom, and like I need to walk around it to get to, like, I don't know, my sock drawer, or like I need to go round, and it's just blocking the path. And then it was just staying there, and I was like, can you put your freaking golf clubs away? Like, but you know, eventually it gets put away. It gets put away, but mainly it's things that are blocking my path, and I'm like, pick it up, put it away, you know. I mean, I have piles of clothes just like on top of my like wardrobe, like there's enough piles of like notebooks and stuff, and like the whole dining table has like stuff. But if I need to get somewhere and there's something blocking me, please. But to be fair, like there are things that I do that are also, I can't be the police, because I do leave things lying around as well. So yeah,
fair enough.
I don't have any.
I mean, okay, Nico, if you're listening to this, really, it's more about the shoes, the golf club,
the wires.
The wires. Yeah, shoes, golf club, wires. So if you want to make her happy, just keep those out of the way.
All right. I think we are pretty much at a wrap for this episode. So thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, go ahead to Spotify, give us a 5-star rating, and we will see you for the next one. Bye.
Bye.